What? Whose music is this? This isn't what I asked for. Somebody turn that damn song off. Saints Row 4 is a game developed by Volition and published by Deep Silver, which was released not 2 weeks ago. Before we go any further, I must stress the fact that, while I'll try not to spoil too much, the gameplay and even the setting can only be explained by telling you some parts of the story. Because of this, I will give a small introduction to the story, but other than that, tell you little to nothing about what happens later on or how the game ends. As this is technically a review, or at least my opinion, spoilers are inevitable, and you should bear that in mind whilst deciding whether or not to watch this video. Without further ado, let's head right into it. The plot of the game takes place about 5 years after Saints Row 3, and you, the ever nameless but not voiceless protagonist, are now the President of the United States, and all of you lieutenants, including some new ones, are now your trusted employees. Chief of Staff, Head of Press, Head of Security, and so on and so on. All is fine and dandy until suddenly an evil alien overlord by the name of Zinyak decides to crash the party, destroy the White House and abduct not only your most trusted accomplices in crime, but you as well. Zinyak, being an evil alien overlord who possesses far greater technology than you do, then places everybody in some form of stasis and plunks you and everyone else in a simulated experience meant to be each person's personal nightmare. Kinsey quickly finds a way out and hacks into your personal nightmare in order to help you escape. After you wreak some havoc in your simulation, Zinyak decides to plunk you into a new world instead. This new world looks exactly like Steelport, the city from the previous Saints Row game, but there are some key differences. All the cribs belonging to the Saints have been destroyed by Zinyak, and all over the city huge alien structures can be seen floating in midair. Not deterred by this imminent and very real threat, you and Kinsey almost immediately get to work on how to get you and the others out of the simulation and back into the real world. While Kinsey hacks away to try and find you an exit out of the simulation, you buy some guns, clothes, kill some guys, and obtain superpowers inside the simulation that help you get around much more efficiently. It's also incredibly fun. See? Whee! Anyway, Kinsey quickly opens up a portal and in no time flat you're back in the real world. You then get saved by her and the Vice President, Keith David, who've managed to procure an alien spaceship. After making your big escape from the alien mothership, you soon realize your friends are still stuck in the simulation, and the only way to get at them safely is through the simulation you were in earlier. So you willingly re-enter the simulation on board the ship and set off on an adventure to find your friends. The story isn't actually that bad, all the characters develop and contribute in their own way. You get to spend time with them in the simulation as well as outside it, and you can learn more about them individually by entering their personal nightmares, by doing side quests for them, or by finding their audio log collectibles which I scattered around the city. The game now calls missions quests, and these are divided into 2 categories. Main quests that help the story move forward, and side quests. Side quests are basically tasks your friends make you do and are usually comprised of doing certain blue or red activities or a mixture of both. Completing these side quests not only gives you more insight into the character for whom you're doing the quest, but also yields permanent rewards like a weapon, an upgrade, or even a superpower for you to use in the simulation. Only a handful of main quests will tell you to do activities, which helps to not break the flow of the story in any way. By doing all the side quests, you'll pretty much do all the blue and red activities in the game, meaning there are quite a lot of side quests for you to do. However, as these are side quests, you can simply ignore them and hardly do any of the activities. They've added new activities though, most of which are based around your newly attained superpowers. There's platforming, racing, audio surfing. Even some old activities have been changed to accommodate your Superman-esque prowess, such as the insurance fraud and mayhem activities. Besides the blue ones, there's also red activities, which range from simply stealing and delivering a vehicle or killing a certain target in a certain area. As most of the activities require you to use your powers, upgrading your powers actually makes the activities easier to do, as the upgrades carry over into the activities. You can upgrade your powers by collecting a bunch of data clusters, which can be found all over Steelport. Because you can only pay for power upgrades with data clusters and obtaining them can only be done by finding them in the city, you're not only encouraged to go out and explore at your own leisure, but you're also rewarded for doing so. Sprinting and jumping around doesn't really get old at all, especially not when you buy all the mobility upgrades which will allow you to jump over tall buildings in one jump, or even make cars fly around by running at top speed. While certainly not original, the powers don't need to be explained by the supernatural for it to be credible, which makes for an easier time believing in them. They've really gone all out with this whole simulated environment thing. The superpowers are the main example of this, but other things such as glitchy pedestrians and the list of new weapons add a lot to the new world. And while it's technically not a new world, because you're still in Steelport, which is a city from the previous game, these added changes turn it into a world of its own, so I really didn't mind being in Steelport again. Especially considering I never bothered to explore Steelport before now. The powers make it fun to explore, and there's ample reason for you to do so. In short, I had no problems with revisiting Steelport, since Saints Row 3 didn't do the city justice. Onto the pew pew. Most, if not all, of the weapons are new in Saints Row 4, and weapon customization has been given a massive overhaul. You can now be more selective about the parts of the weapon you wish to upgrade. You can also customize the weapon's appearance and even how it sounds to whatever it is you desire. Within reason, of course. You can use Han Solo's blaster instead of a regular pistol, a blunderbuss instead of the conventional shotgun, or even a Tommy gun instead of an SMG. With the upgrade that allows you to dual wield SMGs, you can even dual wield Tommy guns.
I'm sorry, Dan. I did everything I could. I don't know what to say anymore.
I believe you. But my Tommy guns don't.
Besides that, there's also the new weapons such as the Dubstep Gun that will allow you to wub your enemies to death, the Inflator Ray that kills your targets by, you guessed it, inflating them till they burst, a lightsaber that kills most units in one hit, and even a gun that shoots black holes called the Singularity Gun. This weapon's so powerful it sucks up vehicles and even tanks in just one shot. Unlocking these weapons is something you can only do by doing the side quests required, so don't expect to indulge in your most basic desire for free. Except for the America gun, which you get by pre-purchasing or pre-ordering the game, so yeah, there's that. While the guns certainly feel good, look nice, and are very expensive, oftentimes I found myself just using my Fire Blast power after I had obtained the Chain Reaction upgrade. Throwing just one of these fireballs would pretty much take out any group of enemies so long as they were standing relatively close to each other. You even get two other offensive powers early on, namely Stomp and Telekinesis. However, the Fireball Chain Reaction tactic was so incredibly efficient that I hardly ever used the other powers in combat. The combat itself is definitely not as good as Prototype's combat, but then again, combat is in no way the main focus of this game or any other Saints Row game. What Saints Row is about is freedom, exploration, conquering your foes in the city in which you reside, and role-playing as a street thug at first and a renowned head of a crime ring near the end of the game. While you certainly won't be dressing up as a street thug in Saints Row 4, what with you being the president of the USA and all, but you'll definitely be role-playing as Superman after you unlock all your power upgrades and the melee damage upgrade you find in the upgrades menu. Why Superman? Because you can catch a speeding bullet, set your enemies on fire or freeze them without too much trouble, and leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, it even says so in the power upgrades menu, see? The game's loaded with references, some subtle, others painstakingly obvious. The game definitely feels like an homage to many different games. The mobility you're given feels very reminiscent of Prototype, the speed drift activity looks like audio surf, and the fact that you're on an alien spaceship with your crew, whom you can get to know in oh so many ways, reminds me of another franchise in which you got to party like it's 9 with your subordinates. Even one of your friends' nightmare is a 2D side-scroller beat-em-up game in which your friend's girlfriend gets punched in the stomach and abducted by some bad guy. Sound familiar? The game doesn't limit its references to games only. There's also a rail shooter segment that looks similar to Star Wars, and you can also get a lightsaber in Han Solo's own blaster. You can even get a phaser from Star Trek dressed up like Boba Fett, and whenever you enter a Wreck City simulation, you're presented with this loading screen, which to me looks a lot like what entering through a wormhole in Stargate looks like in Stargate SG-1. While the game is filled to the brink with these kinds of Easter eggs, it doesn't really impede the gameplay or narrative by any means. Saints Row 4 really just is its own thing, references, warts and all. I've heard that the developers stopped caring and dialed everything up to 11, which would certainly explain why it doesn't just feel like a massive fan service or an emphasis on silly. I'd like to make this point briefly here. Nobody liked Saints Row 2 because it was silly. People liked it because it was a good game. It had a great sense of humor and it was a great sandbox game. It had bad guys with good backstories, lots of customization options, choices that felt like they mattered. Should I only buy the drink? Or do I want a burger with that? I mean... An immersive city, good pacing and all-around great atmosphere. What it didn't have was popular music forced down your throat, hilarious floppy purple dildos, tons of hand-holding and obligatory activities to name a few. I'm looking at you, Saints Row 3. Not cool, dude. Not cool. Really what Saints Row 4 felt like was a game that every developer at Volition would enjoy playing themselves, and you can really feel the passion when you're playing it yourself. I don't agree that because the developers didn't care, neither should you, when there were some moments that I couldn't get into or even hated to call. The first half hour or so is interesting stuff, but afterwards it goes all Saints Row 3 on you for a while. You can unlock your maximum jump and sprint upgrades fairly early on, and from that point onward, the game's great to play and enjoy. To be honest, while playing it felt like none of what I was doing was something that could be associated with the Saints Row franchise. But really I'm not sure this game would have worked had it not been a Saints Row game. Not only because the game would have been too balls to the walls ridiculous and lacking of a fanbase to support it, but also because it feels like a lot of concepts from other games and previous Saints Row games patched together. Had it been any other franchise, people would probably have condemned it for ripping off a bunch of other games. Strangely enough, the combination works, it all fits together nicely and it sort of becomes its own unique thing. Maybe not a prime example of a Saints Row game, but a solid title if anything, and easily my number 2 favorite Saints Row game, if only because I've never played the first one. In summary, if you liked Saints Row 4 and superpowers, you'll definitely find your money's worth here. The combat is not perfect, but it's solid, the focus on customization and exploration missing in Saints Row 3 is back in this one, and there's more than enough content and hours worth of gameplay to not feel bad about paying €50 for the pleasure and one might say privilege of playing it. Finishing it took me about 21 hours, and at 94% completion, that's not a bad number if I do say so myself. Not too bad at all. Thanks a lot for watching my video about Saints Row 4. Please let me know whether or not you liked the video by clicking the like or dislike button below the video, above the description in the comments, and between the recommended videos to your right and the subscription box to your left. If you have any sort of criticism you'd like me to take, please leave it in the comment section and I promise I'll read it. If you enjoyed this video, do take the time to either watch some of my other videos or to subscribe so that YouTube can automatically let you know when my next video goes live. Also a big shout out to my dear friend VenomJenZer who bought me this game so that I could make this video. Big thank you to him. Thanks again for taking the time to watch the video and have a nice day.